Over the past 75 years, more than 10,000 chemicals have entered our food supply, but the EU allows just 300 additives. At Thrive Market, we prioritize quality, banning over 1,000 ingredients found in conventional grocery stores. Our Healthy Swap scanner helps you find better versions of your pantry essentials without the junk, dyes, or fillers, and everything is delivered right to your doorstep. So shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health at thrivemarket.com/get-started for 30% off your first order and a free $60 gift.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, a.k.a. Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
Into the bylaw.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
And it is April the 8th, 2015. It is the Sackheads Radio Show live from the SHR Media Studios in the driest state in the Union, Sacramento, California. All of us, I mean, it's not a state.
Well, it's not really dry. This is not a dry studio. As a matter of fact, I think we all have an open beer in front of us.
So we're not a dry
right
studio.
Now, we are not a dry studio by any stretch of the imagination.
What's going on with my mouse? Socko, do we have batteries?
What are you drinking?
Yeah. Yeah, my mouse is dead.
Are you guys really having a battery discussion
well,
during
he's
opening and general jackassery
Dude, he's the
now?
tech guy. My mouse isn't working. Well, who am I supposed to go to? You?
The doctor. They
I'm
have those
explaining
blue
to
pills,
you how to sign into chat
right?
roll for the 4,000th time.
They have those blue pills. Your mouth isn't working. See the doctor. I don't know what to tell you. Don't go to something battery operated right away.
Oh, man. This is why he's the number one producer in the business, folks. Ask and you shall receive. I asked for a battery, and it's immediate. And boom, I think it's dead. But that's all right, because you tried. Thank you so much for...
You have to actually hit the on button.
No, it's on. It's on, dude. I hit the on button.
One battery in there.
It only takes one battery.
And this segment is called Things We Should Have Done Before We Went Live on Air.
Can you fix that?
That's not even on the board as that, but maybe we need to add that as a segment, I think.
What am I drinking was the question you asked. New Belgium 1554 Black Lager.
Nice. And I have a Deschutes Black Butte Porter.
Which is a great beer as well.
It is.
You know, and it's funny.
Socko Taco.
Yeah.
What are you drinking over there? He doesn't care.
It's an IPA.
It's an IPA. Socko's got an IPA.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, I said this to you before. I don't like New Belgium's Fat Tire. It's just not a beer I enjoy. It's not a bad beer. It's just not a beer I enjoy.
Right.
But the 1554 is outstanding.
It is.
It really is outstanding.
It is.
Snake Dog IPA for Socko. No, Snake Dog. That's it. So we're all happy tonight.
We are.
So much to talk about on the big show. I have to throw out a word of thanks to Dan Butcher and Jason Miller for filling in for me today for the Edge of Liberty. Much appreciated to them for stepping up at the last minute. I couldn't make my show this morning, but I know I left it in really good hands. Also want to throw a shout out to a friend, Charlie Simon. He's on 1380 KTKZ out here. A friend of mine as well. That was a little sharing. He threw my name out earlier today, so I figured I'd throw his out. Get even. But more importantly, I want to throw a shout out to Clint for bringing me beer tonight.
Right. You're welcome.
So you win the prize. You just became my favorite person between 8 p.m. and 8:15.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you're not in the chat roll, go to shrmedia.com. Make sure you jump into the live chat at 9 o'clock and tell all your friends, Facebook, Twitter, snail mail. I don't care how you get the word out. Tell all your friends. 9 o'clock, jump in the chat room or get us on Facebook and Twitter. And we're going to come up with the best way that we think, if he gets the death penalty, that Joe Arsenayev should be put to death. So that's going to be at 9. That's one suggestion right there. There it is. There it is. Took Sacco a few times to actually get it in the chamber, which was weird.
I don't think Sacco really is good at that. I think we need to take Sacco to the range.
We get it.
Because he dumped about 4 shells on the ground.
For no reason.
For no reason whatsoever.
We do need a good range day. We haven't had a good range day for the SHR boys in a long time, so we got to hook that up. That'll be a fun day. Maybe that'll be a YouTube video. That'd be a good
SHR at the range?
Yeah, that would be a good YouTube video. We'd have a lot of fun with that. We can invite some friends that are close. If you're in Northern California this April the 15th, and this happens all over the country, which is really kind of cool, rallies on all the state capitals, and one of the big ones this year from the Tea Party is going to be about a constitutional convention and spreading the word about that and some other things. So if you're not doing anything this Wednesday other than paying the tax man, you should join the rally and check it out, because I'm thinking about hitting our local one just for fun. It's usually a good crowd. There's some great people there, and you get some good information. So I'm really excited about that. What about you? How was your week?
It was great. It was good. Look, baseball started.
I was going to say, one of the coolest things of the year started this week, which was baseball.
Absolutely. And Jason, thank you very much for the update. It looks like Oakland and the Anaheim Angels. I refuse to call them the Los Angeles
Angels of Anaheim.
I think that is absolutely ridiculous. I'm just going to go with Anaheim. It looks like they're both leading by 5. So thank you for the update, because while I love spending my time here,
yeah, you're missing the game.
I hate doing it on days where there's a game, which is basically every Wednesday during baseball season.
Right.
So I don't like doing this show during baseball season.
I can accept that.
I mean, I love doing this show.
Oh, just not during baseball season.
I just don't like missing baseball.
I don't blame you.
Like, your game's already over. You don't care.
I'm good.
You don't care, right? You're selfish.
I'm good. We lost today. The Sox lost today, but started off the season great against the Phillies. I mean, you want to talk about 5 dingers, grand slam, shutout performance by Clay Buchholz, who I had some questions about coming into this year as to whether or not he could truly be the ace of the squad after losing John Lester, but I think it's going to be a good season for us. I really do. Did you hear about what the Cubbies are doing?
No.
So, outside of Wrigley, they have those, all the buildings that have the stands on top where they actually sell tickets. And it's kind of like a unique Americana experience for Chicago. One of the things you do when you go to a game is usually the next game, or when you can, you go sit on those. They're not part of the stadium. It's outside the stadium. The owners pay a profit share to the Cubs, so it's not a violation or anything like that.
Okay.
But it's kind of a cool experience to not be in the stadium but watch the game, and they have different events and stuff like that. It's a little piece of history. Listen, it's not like the Cubs have a lot going for them. They need to preserve whatever they can.
Right. I mean, they were responsible for giving us Obama because they're out of Chicago, so we don't like them for that.
Absolutely.
Their mayor is Rahm Emanuel, so we don't like them.
There's a lot
that.
of different things that could be fixed there. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
And so the Cubs turned around and filed a lawsuit because they were trying to put up signs in the outfield that would block the view of those buildings. And the building owners fought it, and they ended up filing a lawsuit. Now, this has been going on for 25 years. Filing a lawsuit allowing them to put up gigantic signs that would block the view of those buildings. Even though they had a profit share deal with the Cubs, and it was all legal, they're now trying to end it. And that was more popular in some ways than the actual going into Wrigley itself. It was a part of baseball, like I said, a little slice of Americana, something Chicagoans really enjoyed, but really a tourist attraction. Now it's kind of going away, and I understand I definitely understand the capitalism part of it. Hey, it's their business. It's their company.
It's their stadium.
It's their stadium. They can do whatever they want. But I always get mad at owners who will take away part of the baseball experience overall in order to make a couple more bucks. Because
so they have the right to do it.
absolutely.
But they shouldn't do it because it's just wrong.
Well, I think when you're looking at
It's wrong.
yeah, it's just kind of wrong
It's
to do to
rude.
your fans. It's rude. That's better than wrong.
It's rude.
It's rude. It's not wrong.
Right.
Because it's theirs.
It's
they
not
can
wrong.
do it.
They
I
can do
understand
it.
that.
But it's rude.
It's definitely rude.
It's unethical.
No.
Would you go unethical?
No, I think,
You would just go rude.
I think rude is the absolute best way to put it. And you know what? If I'm the Chicago Cubs, I'm going to do whatever I can to keep my fans coming because I haven't won a series in a long time.
A long
106
time.
years now.
Long
Every
time.
time they get close, something something happens, and they just
they
have,
lose. That's what happens.
and they still have, they still have a really strong fan base. Yeah, WGN, which is a national station, did drop the Cubs contract. Thank you, Jason. They're hurting. Never mind their open. Did you hear about their opening game? Apparently, half the plumbing went out in the stadium, and so the beer cups had to be recycled.
They don't play at the Oakland Coliseum.
No, it was like an Oko game.
Right.
Sacco's getting escape tips while we're arguing over this. He should jump into the blue van outside.
Right.
The joke is on you because we parked 5 blue vans outside.
That's
4
right.
of them have cages.
Right. Right. And one doesn't start.
One won't start. It's kind of like this show sometimes. That is actually the best metaphor for this show some weeks. It's got a cage inside and it won't start. That's pretty much where we're at. But yeah, opening game. What does that tell you about what your season's going to be when you literally can't take a leak while you're at the baseball game?
Well, you can.
Right, just not comfortably.
Right.
T-Bone actually was showing me a device that they had. Some guy on YouTube. It's essentially a rubber tube, like a bike tube that's like 5 feet long for men to be able to go to the bathroom in a conspicuous manner in public. And that would have been great.
And just like tube it 5 feet away,
That's exactly what it is.
like to somebody else.
Right down your jeans and down the bottom.
So here's what I would do with that. I would hook that bad boy up and just like hang it right out the car window. Right?
No,
What do you mean no?
because the
Airplanes
last time we
do it,
went
don't they?
the last time we went on a road trip, I sat behind you.
Right.
And I like to keep the window down.
That's not my fault. Right? You have the option to roll it up.
Oh,
Drill a hole in the bottom portion of the door, perhaps.
Right out.
And like hang it down.
right out, yeah.
Right.
Environmentally friendly. Good evening to everybody in our chat room tonight. I'm really, really glad you guys are joining us. And I want to say hi to MKL. And I won't quite out who she is yet, but I appreciate her staying up late on the East Coast to listen. And so I appreciate that. And it's fun.
And I love MKL.
I know.
She is awesome.
I know.
I had the opportunity to meet her one time, and she is absolutely awesome.
She is a wonderful human being. Probably one of the most patient individuals, at least as life went on, she had to be. Anyone who listens to my day show knows exactly who MKL is. That's kind of the funny part. So listen to my day show and you'll find out. That's my little teaser for tomorrow. You want to find out who MKL? Listen tomorrow to my day show. See what I did? It's called radio. I love the look on your face right now. So what else is going on with you?
I can't talk about it.
Why?
Because I can't talk about it.
You can.
I don't want
It's
to.
just me and a couple other thousand
like
people.
friends.
Yeah,
Friends.
just
We're
some,
all family here.
Yeah, just some close friends.
Right?
Come on, we're tight.
We're all family.
What's going on?
We're all family
It's
here.
just coffee talk. What's going on with you?
Nothing. Easter was great.
Easter was great. Had
Easter
a great
was
time
great.
as well in my
Yeah.
house. Always a lovely holiday. And
I got drunk.
Well,
And I had soup and grilled cheese. That was my Easter, right?
dude,
What?
you're living the dream right
It was
there.
awesome.
I was going to say. What kind of soup did you have?
I had Campbell's vegetable soup.
Oh,
It was
good.
good. It's always good with grilled cheese, right?
Always good with grilled cheese.
And then a nice Drake's Imperial Coffee Stout.
Yeah, now I have to try it. You gave that rave reviews, so that's
Yeah,
going to be something.
like 9%,
I put it in my phone
22.
next time I go.
It is outstanding.
Good.
Outstanding.
Good. I'll absolutely check that out, and I appreciate the tip on that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's 8:15. It's time to get to the big board of topics,
You like how I just garnered sympathy for my Easter
dude.
from everybody?
And I fed into it.
I know. You totally fed into it. You totally fed into it, right? Like, I had a great Easter. I partied it
But
up.
here's how awesome our chat room is. Other soup suggestions are starting to pop up.
No, I love it. I love it. I know Ag prefers tomato soup with grilled cheese. That's awesome.
Oh man! So there's
Did you go for a run this week like you were going to?
what?
Like to the refrigerator?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I made it all the way to the fridge.
Okay, perfect.
I was like, no, nobody was chasing me with a gun. One of the
Right, and
reasons-
even so, you don't run.
right? No, I just kind of just
Turn and
argue.
face them and fire back, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Just have the argument. So there's a new book coming out, and I just saw this today. It's a tell-all book about the White House in general, but there's going to be some interesting stories coming out about the Clintons. And
I bet the Bushes were just hated since they're Republicans.
horrible, and I'm going to
Right.
get into that as well. They were terrible.
Well, yeah. Horrible to the staff. Wait. Oh, wait, never mind. I'm looking at the notes. They actually were very loved.
These
Oh.
former White House workers covered 10 different administrations, and they tell about everybody, but it's actually the Clinton administration that is kind of keyed in on the most, where they talked about how tumultuous their lifestyle was within the White House. The anecdotes are contained in The Residence Inside the Private World of the White House by Kate Anderson Bauer.
Brower.
It says Bauer on mine.
Does it? It says
Yep.
Brower on my notes.
Oh, well. Either way.
Who's right?
Probably the birth certificate.
That's a good call.
Thanks.
Oh, so the government. So the government's right is
The
what you're saying.
government's right.
Government's right. Okay. Hey, for all of our listeners, Sean just said the government's right. So
Well, birth certificates usually done by local governments, which I support.
governments.
Local.
Governments.
So some of the things that it talks about is the fact that Chelsea Clinton had a cute nickname for her Secret Service detail.
Right.
She called them pigs.
Right. Because that's what her mother and father called them.
Right. When she was questioned, that she said, "That's what my mother and father called you."
The agent got upset, according to the story, right, and says, "My job is to stand between your parents, you, and a bullet, essentially."
Yes.
And she doesn't. She was
Yeah,
like,
she's
"Oh."
like, "Well, that's just what they call you, so that's
Right.
completely okay."
Now, I thought about this. Do you think it's because the Secret Service that the Clintons just did not like the American SS?
I'm going to go with no on that.
Because that's what they are,
Right.
right?
The Secret Service.
They
SS.
are the SS. Yeah, the American SS. And so maybe they just didn't really understand what their function was. Maybe it was out of ignorance, and they thought that it was some kind of holdover thing. I don't know.
There's a couple of the little stories.
I'm speculating.
I know you're
I'm just
speculating.
spitballing
You're
here.
just throwing it out. Hey,
Yeah.
that's how problems get solved.
Right, giving them the benefit of the doubt. Because, look, they're the Clintons, right? Like, they're not that intelligent.
Right.
Otherwise, they'd be Republicans, right?
Right.
So maybe that's what it is, because they don't understand.
So they also fired an usher that had worked at the White House for years. He had a $50,000 a year job.
Like somebody that showed them where their seats were?
I think he did a lot more than just that inside.
Okay.
Because Hillary became, quote unquote, uncomfortable with him. And the problem stemmed from was that Laura Bush, former First Lady Barbara Bush, would call him at the White House and ask him to help her with her personal computer. And that made them uncomfortable because he was nice enough to help former First Lady Barbara Bush. And then the fights. And that's going to be the big one.
I wish there was a camera in there to film like the White House MMA battles, right? And by MMA, I mean the Mr. and Mrs. Action, right?
Yes.
I would pay for that. Like I would have paid to watch those.
I absolutely would have paid to watch those.
I wonder when what presidential family is going to be the first one to actually have like a pay-per-view webcam. In
Somebody
their
will.
residence. And what if we get a president freaky enough to do it in their bedroom?
We may have one now. So a couple of the tales are in there, but one of the ones that's drawing the most scrutiny or attention is the night that in the middle of this Lewinsky scandal, that a maid had entered the first bedroom, or the couple's bedroom, and found blood all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the day before then President Clinton came out with stitches. I believe it was in his forehead, and stated that he ran into the bathroom door in the middle of the night. But the White House staffers are pretty sure that Hillary hit him with the book. And I'm not saying that she probably shouldn't have at the time.
He might have deserved it.
He might have deserved it.
Right.
And I'm not going to defend Hillary on much. But when your husband's scandal of having an affair with an intern went all over the world,
right,
and you're essentially in the public eye for being the woman who's married to, and for the rest of her career now, because she knew she wasn't going to divorce him, that would ruin her politics and her life in general, probably to some level. So she went Louisville Slugger on him with a book, allegedly. And that's what really caused the damage to his head.
And again, I don't know that I fault her for that. What I do fault is the Secret Service or whatever sworn peace officer was there who failed to take action for domestic violence.
Absolutely.
Because that is a serious crime.
And that's the commander-in-chief.
Right.
You have to protect him at all costs.
Absolutely.
Oh, could you imagine? Could you even imagine?
Right.
That would have been amazing.
So is there going to be anything that comes about for these SS agents in terms of failure to act?
Probably not. Probably not.
There should be a congressional probe.
There should be.
Because the President of the United States allegedly was attacked, and nobody did anything about it.
Ag wants to know which book it was that she threw, the Communist Manifesto of Rules for Radicals. Probably her signed version of Rules for Radicals. She and Saul were pretty close. Well, and you know, there were...
Maybe the Bible?
Maybe, yeah, I don't think so. And those allegations were going on for years. I can remember Saturday Night Live running a whole skit about...
When he was governor.
When he was governor, showing up to the house, and Hillary... So there's always been allegations that she had violence in her system. And, obviously we talked about the 47 bodies of Hillary Clinton. Just saying, this isn't going to bode well for her going into this. So, and then there was another incident too, and I'm trying to find it, where the White House maids were called in to clean up a giant mess, and apparently they had regular arguments. At one point, the former White House florist was Ron Payne. Was riding in the service elevator and heard the First Lady cussing at the president.
Yeah, it said, quote, "goddamn bastard."
Yep. And then at some point threw a lamp that had to get cleaned up.
Yeah.
No,
it was a heavy object was thrown.
But they had to go clean up a lamp.
The rumor, right, was that she threw a lamp because the staff had to clean up a broken lamp.
Yeah, it's... do you think something like this is going to grab legs and really affect her on the campaign trail? I know this is all speculation.
Here's why I don't know that it's really going to affect her.
Okay.
Because she could very easily play the, hey, I found out this man I was in love with, my husband had been having an affair, was cheating on me, I was publicly embarrassed, I was the victim, yes, I have emotions, and I lashed out.
Okay.
And that's going to garner sympathy from some people.
I think so.
It will.
That's if she owns up to it. But if she owns up to it, and I don't know what the statutes of limitations are in D.C., especially because at that point it'd be a federal crime.
Right, for attacking the
So
president.
if she owned up to it, could they then turn around and pursue charges? And remember, this DOJ and this administration does not like the Clintons.
No, and they don't tolerate domestic violence.
Yes. At all. So...
Now, is it alleged that Bill Clinton never dresses in drag? Because if so, we may have a hate crime component to this too. And I don't know. Like, I'm just throwing it out there, right?
You have to look at all aspects.
You have to look at all aspects. Like, I don't know.
It's going to be fun to see. I actually want to read this because you alluded to this at the very beginning, but two of the most highly regarded families that had come through out of the 10 administrations were both Bushes, both Bush administrations, and even say
not that we want another one.
No, don't want a third.
We'd
like to avoid a third at all costs.
Right.
We could
not
stop
at all costs.
We could
like
stop
a lot
at
of
2.
But
but
as far as
especially leaving a
people-
good legacy for the people who work inside the White House.
Right.
And they were essentially saying that, especially George W. Bush treated everyone like gold, and Laura
George H.W. Bush.
H.W.
Yeah.
Both actually,
And Barbara. Right.
and Barbara as well as Laura Bush.
Not Boxer, Bush.
Right. Let's not confuse anybody here. Just treated them amazingly, from hanging out with them and talking to them, and just, it says a lot about. And then again, the Clintons were also said to have just been horrible to the staff that works there. And I remember an old saying: you could tell a lot about a person by how they treat the hired help.
Right.
And that really, I think, does tell you a lot about who the Clintons are, and especially Hillary, and how the Secret Service were pigs and just firing people for no reason, essentially. And I think it's going to be one of those things that this will come up again, I think, during the election, and you're going to start seeing these people come out, some of these people who wrote it, and they're definitely going to be in commercials and all that. And I'm sure this book was timed to release perfectly. I'm sure there's politics on some level timed into this book. I'm not going to argue that.
Mm-hmm.
But the story of this, never mind just what it's like to work and live inside the White House and work for these folks, but I think that I think that really this is going to go a long way. I think you're going to see more of this than you could possibly think. So it's interesting to me, absolutely interesting. And listen, how many people can say that Hillary Clinton is a mean individual and just horrible to the people around her and the people that she can step on before people really start to realize it? Because it's true. There's truth to it. And I really believe that. I think she is just a cold-hearted, hateful, spiteful woman. And this book is just yet another...
Wretch.
Wretch.
Wretch would be a good term.
Let's put that up on the word of the week. Wretch. I haven't used that in a long time.
I know.
I think that's a good one.
Hillary the Wretch Clinton.
Sounds like a wrestler.
Or the wrench, right? Because she might
have hit Bill with a wrench.
Right?
You don't know.
She might have. Or when people look at her like nuts tighten up, right? Like that's not an attractive woman, in my opinion. So that's a couple. We could go with a couple different things there, perhaps.
All right, Governor Clinton, tell us what happened. Nothing. I just fell. Come on, Governor. Come on, we both know more than that. No, I was just walking. I was walking into the kitchen and tripped over the. Bill, who are you talking to? Is that the missus? Yeah. You got to Google that SNL Governor Bill Clinton domestic violence. It actually comes up. We're up against a break.
When we come back, we're going to talk about Senator Rand Paul announced his candidacy and kind of maybe get into a little bit of the Republican field for 2016.
Yeah, it's gonna. There's a lot I want to talk about to this. There's definitely a lot I want to talk about on this topic.
That's why it's a segment.
We're going to be back in 3 here on the Sackheads Radio Show, shrmedia.com.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cow for the stupid bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on The Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to the Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
You know, if our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border and says coordination, we got to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to The Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Welcome back into the Sackheads Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Special shout out to the NSA who's in our chat room apparently, and we really appreciate you really listening to every phone call I ever make.
Right, and using satellites to spy on us and listening to our show.
If you want to have fun with a friend, and a close friend of mine taught me this lesson, this is how to mess with the NSA. Call your friend, and there's a list of code words online that if you say, you're more likely to get tapped into by the NSA.
Right.
And just call your friend in the middle of a conversation. Just start shouting those individual words on the call, and then hang up. Or say something like, all right, I'll meet you at the drop point, and then hang up. It's a blast. The NSA loves it. It gives them something to do. And really, just enjoy yourself with that. See, I can do it to people because I already know they listen to me.
Right.
More than likely.
Or say those names and say, I got your contact phone number as.
That's not a bad idea,
right?
Actually. That's not a bad idea. So, just thinking out loud of how many ways that could go south.
How could that possibly go wrong?
I don't know. Oh, bring the package. That's another good one, Agador, in the chat. Bring the package. Hey, make sure you grab all that lime and meet me at the spot. I got the shovels. New and exciting ways to waste government dollars. Brought to you by the Sackheads Radio Show.
Because that's what we're all about.
shrmedia.com.
You know why I like Rand Paul declaring?
Why?
Because I don't think the government would listen to our show anymore.
I agree with you.
Right? Our listenership might go down because of that.
Right, but we'll lose one or two a week. But hey, you know what? That's fine.
Right. That weird drone wouldn't circle the studio anymore.
Which, I've gotten so used to the buzz that I don't know if I could do the show without it, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah. And the spotlight through the window really adds a nice shadow effect
It really
on the back
does.
wall.
It really does. That Dud missile that they dropped, though, that was a little scary.
But we turned that into a lamp.
Right. And we both said it at the same time because obviously it's true.
Right.
Like, we don't think alike. It's obviously true.
That's right. Oh, Senator Rand Paul declared Tuesday that he would be entering the 2016 presidential race. What?
It's in blue.
I'm sorry.
Senator Rand Paul declared Tuesday that he would be entering the 2016 presidential race. Take another pull of your beer there. Sport.
Go on.
Look, first of all, I like Ted Cruz, and I like Rand Paul. So I am very happy with both Republican candidates that have officially declared.
I am as well.
Thus far.
I
don't know what Jeb Bush is waiting for. I'm not going to be happy when he does announce, but I'm very happy with these two. Here's why I think Rand Paul actually has a good shot. He's actually polling very well.
He's polling much better than I think anyone expected.
Well,
really.
he's polling right up there with Scott Walker, with Ted Cruz. He's polling very strongly, and I think that's among Republicans. But here's what he has going for him. I think his biggest drawback is going to be his traditionally more isolationist point of view, which I'm not opposed to.
Right.
But given the current state of global affairs in a 2016 bid and perhaps debate on foreign policy, that could be problematic for him. Now, I think he's done a good job so far of kind of explaining it, basically saying, hey, listen, in terms of foreign aid, Israel has said that they want to eventually have the foreign aid decreased and stand on their own more or whatnot. But he talks specifically about cutting those foreign aid dollars to countries that hate us, that burn our flag.
Yep.
And look, I agree with him wholeheartely on that. And in terms of his isolationist view, I don't know that it's a strict isolationist view. I don't think that it is. But what appeals to me about that point of view is George Washington spoke about the importance of really not getting involved in affairs of other countries. Now, it's different if it directly affects us, right? Or our ally Israel or something of that nature. But otherwise, we shouldn't be involved in those affairs. And so he has that view, and so I like that. But given the perception that he is a, quote, strict isolationist, and I wouldn't call him a strict isolationist, but given that kind of stigma that's followed him, I think he's going to have to explain that
quite a bit.
Right, particularly running up. And he's already kind of started to get out in front of it, which I like. Like I said, I saw him when Hannity did his interview with him the other night. He kind of explained that about, hey, I'm talking in terms of foreign aid. Why are we giving money to countries that burn our flag and want to kill us and hate us? He's absolutely correct on that.
Yeah.
Why are we giving aid packages?
And he did kind of try to clarify his Israel statement because he did list Israel as people who shouldn't be getting money. But as a couple people said in the chat room, the biggest question mark, I think, for conservatives with Rand Paul is his defense policy. And I think it's correct to question that.
It's correct to question everything.
Everything, right.
Everything.
And with him, that is my only question mark, is how he is on defense.
I'd like him to explain more. I'd like to hear more about it.
I would like to hear more about him.
With that, before I draw a specific conclusion, the things I've heard him, I know it came up in the chat room, he's no friend of Israel, but I think that he's not he certainly is not against Israel like I think this administration is. I think he just wants to kind of pull back some of our treasure that's going over there, and Israel has kind of set the same goal for themselves. So I don't know. I want to hear more about that. But here's where I think he has a good shot. Here's why I think he has a good shot. First of all, he really kind of taps into the untapped corners of the Republican Party, much like this show has done. He reaches out to that younger conservative libertarian group, much like this show does. And, he's made the statement before something to the effect of, and I don't have the quote in front of me right now, like, with tattoos or without tattoos,
right?
With earrings or without earrings. We want to bring our message to places it really hasn't been before, and kind of get that out. So I think that his more libertarian views on things really speaks to people. I think his tax proposals really speaks to people. He wants to do away with the entire tax code and just go with a flat tax. It's brilliant. I think that would work very, very well. And we've talked about the flat tax before and what we like about it. And I don't know that there's anything we really dislike about that idea, other than perhaps the rate. And so I think that he has that going for him. Another reason is right now Washington is so polarized between the two parties. And I've had this discussion with a very good friend of mine a couple weeks ago. And we are so polarized in Washington right now where before in our country, particularly back at when our country was founded in the first part of our country's history, we knew where we wanted to go as a nation. And the parties differed in how we got there, but we still knew what direction we wanted the country to move as a people. And that's fundamentally changed now. We no longer, as a nation, as a people, all want our country to go to the same place. And so we're not having a difference of opinion about how we get there with a common goal in mind. We have two opposing places as a people where this country is going to go. There's a very big socialist movement in this country that wants more regulation, big government, and a extremely strong federal government, which with even more diminished states' rights and individual liberties. They really like that big brother, government is the answer attitude. And the other end of the spectrum is, no, we want less federal involvement. We want more local and state involvement and responsibility like it should be. We really want states' rights. And so we are really heading two totally opposite directions, right? More tax, less tax. Big government, very little government, or at least limited federal government. And so with that polarization right now in Washington, and I think people are absolutely sick of that, Rand Paul has been the one senator that has worked very well with both parties and has actually has a history of reaching across the aisle. And I think that is going to bode well for him. And this is why I don't know like his father, he's really going to split the vote off. I think that his father had some other issues in terms of his politics and whatnot, and
did have one of the best ideas on dealing with pirates, though.
He did. Letters of marque. We wanted to get them.
Issues, letters of marque.
It's still legal. It is in our Constitution.
One of the best ideas Ron Paul ever had.
It is. I agree. But we did a whole show on that one time. It was awesome. But I think that he kind of understands what split the party with some of the things his father was preaching, and he's kind of done a good job to fix some of that. In terms of him reaching across the aisle, I think that's going to go big with voters, particularly if during his campaign he can show that the other folks he's up against really don't have that, and he really has a record to build on that. I mean, he worked with Senator Cory Booker out of New Jersey on a bill, on a bill to reform the criminal justice system, and Senator Kristen Gillibrand out of New York on legalizing medical marijuana. So he has that history, and whether you agree with those issues or not, he has that history of reaching across the aisle. Legalizing medical marijuana. Look, as a libertarian, there's the point of view. What you do in your own home is your business. Particularly marijuana, if a doctor prescribes it or whatever. If you're in a car, you're smoking it in front of your kids, something like that. Different story. Right?
Well, just in general, it doesn't really matter what the topic is.
Exactly. But that's the kind of thing where it's going to pull votes from those Democratic candidates.
It could very well.
Also,
very well.
Absolutely. Because he is conservative, not necessarily on social issues. Obviously, if he's talking about medical marijuana.
Yeah, no, he's real liberal,
stuff.
social centrist.
But I consider him more libertarian, not even
right.
social liberal, because he's not his stance is basically it's individual choice as long as you're not infringing upon the liberty of others. It's not government's job to get in the way of that. And that, look, we have similar views on a lot of those things, and I think that's what speaks to people. So those are the things that I think are going. He has going for him. I mean, you look at the filibuster he had. What was it, almost 13 hours, 12 hours and 50 some odd minutes when the drone program came out, and he got tremendous support for that. He was the only one that had the stones to do that, and he was kind of, others in his party really kind of berated him for it, but good for him for using a tool that was available to him as a United States Senator to stand up for something that he believed strongly in. And you will never, I don't think anybody who pays attention in politics will ever agree with any candidate on 100% of the issues. Correct? So if you disagree with Rand Paul on whatever issue, I think that he is, I believe, just based upon what I've seen so far, that he is a principled man. And that's really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody that has principles that are going to fight for those principles in Washington, regardless of the consequences. And I think he has done that. I think that, again, him reaching across the aisle and doing other things that his party may not necessarily agree with him on, and standing up for what he believes in, that's important to me. Particularly since I think that his belief system is founded on solid constitutional principle.
Yeah, and I do have some issues with Rand. I don't dislike the man by any stretch of the imagination. And when you start looking at the conversation that he will bring to the campaign, or to the run to the White House, that's kind of a big deal. He will bring up a lot of those issues and bring them to the forefront and really kind of force statements from other candidates. I think the other thing that he does, too, is he's a good candidate to raise the bar, especially when it comes to all the different debates that they could possibly have. And
the foreign policy debate he may have the most trouble in.
Yeah.
Admittedly.
But
just based on public opinion, kind of where we are right now.
But just in general, like him or not, I think he's going to increase the value of the debates because of the conversations that he will bring to them. I think Jeb Bush is just going to be a wet blanket over the Republicans. Nothing good can come from Jeb Bush entering the race. Same thing with Chris Christie. Nothing good can come from Chris Christie entering the race. It does not help the Republicans at all. However, I believe that Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Scott Walker, at least those three, will create a great setting for conversation. It will get a lot of information out there and really let you know where these guys stand. And I think they'll be able to have these fights without destroying the other candidates for the left. I think that's one of the good things about the three of these guys is, and there's a couple other people waiting in the wings too, but I think these three are going to be the front runner, Walker, Cruz, and Paul. And I think that
Jeb Bush too, just based on name and finances, I think.
And I think by entering the debate, by bringing it to the forefront, I think it creates intelligent conversation. It also, I think, is great for the party because I think you're going to see it with those three running start being more conservative without Reince wanting it to be.
Right.
They listen, those people who are running the GOP right now don't want it to be more conservative. They want it to be right where it is, where they're kind of in charge of rhinos. These three entering the conversation, entering the campaign, will force that party back to conservative values because I think those three are going to get people riled up. I think they're going to get people excited.
Absolutely.
And it's going to force the hand of the GOP to either stand with them or stand against them, and then
Here's what else it's going to do. If the Republican base is rallied by those three individuals, if none of them are the nominee, Jeb Bush, I think, will lose. Because the base vote that was so riled up for one of those three candidates or for those three candidates, so excited
Gonna
to be
walk
in the
away.
field. Like, I'm excited to have Cruz and Rand Paul in there right now. But if any conservative candidate is not that nominee, I will. I won't say I won't vote, because of course I'll vote, but I would be discouraged. And I can see a lot of conservative voters again getting discouraged and fail to show up for the polls. And that's the danger of Jeb Bush of the
And Chris Christie, the two of them.
Yep,
Huge danger.
That's the danger of the establishment that I think the establishment faces, and I don't think they recognize with having somebody who's not a true conservative in there. Now, here's where I think Rand Paul has it over Ted Cruz. I already talked about his ability to kind of reach across the aisle, and people are really sick of that polarizing politics right now. Ted Cruz does not have a good reputation for reaching across the aisle. And I think that is going to be a place where Rand Paul can kind of really focus and pick up points on Cruz. I'm not saying I like Cruz, but I'm saying that's an area I think he's going to have problems, particularly with Rand Paul in the race.
Well, listen, I don't disagree. I think at the end of the day, you're going to see Walker actually be at the forefront. I really believe that.
Here's the thing, though. His name is Walker, and there's a big TV series out right now.
Texas Ranger.
The Walking Dead.
Oh, The Walking Dead.
Where they're called walkers. And it's not a good thing, right? Like, he may be a zombie. I don't know.
Right. He could be very well be a zombie. That's a great argument, Clint.
Thank you.
Way to form that for the left. They're going to use that like crazy now.
Good. You know what? It came from the Sackheads radio show. Make sure and credit us in your ads.
I think you're going to see Scott Walker.
Hang on, 8-0 Oakland over Texas. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I believe they're challenging the last run, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, bases loaded, 2 outs. Go ahead.
I think you're going to see Walker go to the front because I think the one thing that is going to hurt Ted Cruz, whether it should or it should not, is I think you're going to see his first-term senator status hurt him because everyone's going to turn around and use that. Well, look at what happened this time when you elected a first-term senator, blah, blah, blah. Whether it should or should not affect, I think that's going to be what's used against him. I've heard it a lot from a lot of people. So I think that's going to hurt Cruz. I don't know if the isolationist theory with
Yes.
Soccer sends me a message in the middle of my
thought
and screws me all up with Rand. I don't know if that'll help him or hurt him. I would like to think it would hurt him, but you never know. Help him rather, but you never know.
I don't. You know what I think else. What else is going to help Rand Paul is he is really talking about the importance of auditing the Federal Reserve. Having the Government Accountability Office audit the Federal Reserve, because really nobody knows what they're doing with the nation's money supply.
Right.
Nobody has any idea.
Right. And
he introduced a bill this year, back in January, that would have required a complete audit of the Federal Reserve by the GAO.
And I think that's something that needs to get bipartisan support and just
it doesn't,
go.
But here's the thing. Nobody has really brought that up before that I'm aware of.
Right.
Maybe they have. I'm not aware of it if they have. And he takes on these tough issues that nobody else really wants to deal with.
Yeah, he definitely jumps in on some. Hasn't said much about Obamacare. And I think.
Oh, I'm sure he's totally for it because he's really a big government guy.
No, I don't think so. But
of course not.
I think that he hasn't had some sort of plan or even discuss a plan. I think scares some people. I'm not saying it should or it shouldn't, but I'm telling you what I feel.
But honestly, what's the biggest issue right now? Is it? Don't get me wrong. It's an important issue. I don't think it's the biggest.
I think it is to people.
I don't know.
I think it is to people.
I don't know. I'm not convinced of that.
I think if you poll the people,
how
Obamacare
many people are talking about that right now on their 2016 bids? Ted Cruz, they're not.
Well,
Congress should be dealing with this now.
They should be. They should be, and they should be able to get it so it can't be
But
vetoed.
it's not really out. When's the last time you heard anything really out about Obamacare? It's been a while.
Well,
and that's kind of my point right now.
There's been a bunch of other things that have come up in the meantime.
They have been, but if it was really that big of a deal, it would still be out there, and it's not.
I think the literal biggest issue is, I know we have a few minutes left, is ISIS and the security of our nation.
Yes.
And as Fisherman said in the chat room, the economy. I personally think those are the two biggest issues.
Agreed.
I'm telling what I think the majority of the people are thinking. And it'll be interesting to see how the left deals with a more conservative class of candidates. I said before, I'm not 100% that Hillary's going to be out of prison in time to run for 2016.
Are you talking for domestic violence? Or
Well, who knows at this point? It could be anything.
Right.
I'll decide that when Trey Gowdy's done with her.
I'm wondering who else is gonna throw their hat in the ring. There have been talks about Chris Christie. Obviously, I don't think he has a chance.
No,
I really don't.
I don't think
There's
so.
no way. Ben Carson, same. You know who scares me?
Who?
Lindsey Graham.
Oh, Lindsey.
I think Lindsey's going to throw his hat in the ring. He scares me.
I have a wish list doing this show and doing radio in general. I want to get on audio a group of people who say they hate me. Like, I really want the people who hate me say it in audio.
Right.
And I want to have Lindsey Graham be one of those people.
Okay.
That would be huge to me.
That's a good goal. Because I'm sure he says it in private all the time.
Right. I want that to be an issue. I want that to come up. And
there's Rick Perry, Rick Santorum.
I don't think Rick Perry's going to get his name in.
You don't think so?
No, but I think who he puts his name behind
is Rick Santorum.
No. No, whoever he chooses to endorse, I think is going to get a huge boost out of that.
Maybe. You know who else I like? Nikki Haley.
Yeah, Nikki Haley's come up a couple times. I don't know if Nikki Haley... I don't know if it's time.
I don't either, but I like her.
Yeah? That doesn't mean that she shouldn't. I just don't know if it's time.
Right. She may have to do a little more work. But, I mean, she's a governor, South Carolina. So she has that executive
Absolutely.
Experience.
But if you're looking for, once you're trying to find that executive experience crowd, I think Scott Walker has her beat hands down.
I agree. I heard somebody was talking about, I think Mike Huckabee would be great. I'm like, no. No, Mike Huckabee can barely do a talk show on Fox News like on some off hour, right?
Right. Well, and I don't dislike Mike Huckabee. I just don't think that he's presidential material.
Yeah.
I agree with some things he says. I don't agree with everything he says, but I just don't think he's presidential material.
Mitt Romney's obviously declined to run. Paul Ryan declined to run.
Yeah. I think you're going to see Paul Ryan in about 4 years start showing up again.
You think so?
Yep. I think he needs
Unless the Republicans win.
Well, yeah. But if they don't, then I think he needs to get distance from Mitt. And he needs a couple cycles for that to happen.
Well, if he's going to distance himself from Mitt, he shouldn't have declined to run with Mitt. Right? They're the two people that have declined to run so far, I think. So if you're going to distance yourself
hanging out
from
with
him,
him.
yeah, obviously, right? Oh, wait, did Mitt run? No. Yeah, okay, me either. You got to work harder than that.
Well, I think it comes down a lot of times. It's going to come down to who doesn't run being as important as who does run, and it's going to be interesting to see. It really will be. Before we go to break, Albert Pujols hit .571 tonight and tied Teddy Ballgame.
And tied what?
Ted Williams, Teddy Ballgame. Hello.
Yeah, I don't speak Chinese.
Big news out of baseball. We are up actually against the break. When we come back,
I didn't hear the door close.
Well, that's because somebody's being lazy over there.
Oh, there. No, he's right on time.
Oh, okay, good.
You just tried to go to break early because you had nothing else to
8
say.
8 seconds.
Right, 8 seconds early. So Sacco was correct. Thank you, Sacco. You were on it. I'm going to defend you. Back in the cage.
Back in that cage. When we come back, we're going to talk about the conviction of Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, the Boston Marathon bombing, And if he gets the death penalty,
we're going to play a game.
We're going to play the game.
It's the execution
It's
game.
almost like 1,000 Ways to Die execution
right.
style.
So get ready. Get your fingers warmed up for the chat room. Get your fingers warmed up because we want you to weigh in on this.
All your
Be
suggestions.
creative. Be
All your
creative.
suggestions. Start now.
Don't start now. Start when the segment starts.
Okay, fine. Start now or when the segment starts.
Either
whichever one you want.
Either one.
Is that better?
Or on Twitter.
Or on Twitter. Or you know what?
Is this Twitter box on?
We'll be back in 3 on the Sackheads Radio Show.
I had to ask you earlier, hey, so how do I search for this?
He totally did.
You're like,
how do you not know?
Right.
It's the giant
box,
magnifying
right?
glass.
I don't
Sackheads
know
Radio
this voodoo magic. What
Radio
is
Show
this?
here on the SHR Media Network.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cow for the stupid pro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking, drinking, drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific from me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to the Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
You know, if our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border and says coordination, we have to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to The Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here's Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
And welcome back here to the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network. I'm almost giddy about this, and it's kind of sad.
Let's talk about the case first.
Okay. All right, I'm back. So earlier today, the verdict was returned from the federal grand jury, from the federal jury, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Dzhokhar Tsarnaev was found guilty on all counts, 30 different counts. That was levied against him by the federal government for his part of the Boston Marathon bombings and the pursuit and firefight that happened afterwards. The first 10 counts, I believe, all carry the death penalty. And if he was convicted on any one of those,
right,
then during the sentencing phase, that would be an option. The other 20 did not carry the death penalty, but it's a moot point because they were all upheld. So essentially his defense from the very beginning was that, hey, he was involved, but he was just the dumb younger brother who was going around with what the older brother was saying, Tamerlan Tsarnaev, who is the one who's believed to be radicalized first, but not necessarily more. But that was the defense's argument is, hey, you know what, they had no other family over here. It's an older brother and a younger brother. The older brother got radicalized and then kind of dragged the other brother, almost unwillingly, against his will. And 4 people lost their lives. 264 others were injured. And they were vindicated in some way today. Of course, I'm speaking of Christy Campbell, Martin Richard, who was 8 years old, Lingzi Liu, and MIT police officer Sean Collier. It was a horrible day for the city of Boston and the country that day. And I think we can all remember back. And I think this day does show, if nothing else, that we do have the best justice system on the face of the planet. It does work. And, you know, you can get... It's hard to take good out of this. It really is because of how many lives were affected. So it's hard to say, oh, you know, this is good. It is good. I think it'll be better if he gets the death penalty. But for the lives of those people who are involved, I think this is some sort of closure. I think healing can start for a lot of those people. I think healing can start for the city because, you know, I have friends and family there, and I know. And it never really started even though he was caught, and it never really started because he was on trial. Knowing that he was going to be convicted, I think will start that for a lot of those families. And if you watched some of the interviews afterwards from family members and people that were there tell their story again, it's so hard to not want the death penalty for this animal. I have yet to see a statement from the federal government or the president specifically about this. The U.S. attorney in Boston came out and you know, essentially gave kudos to everyone that was involved in the investigation and everyone who testified, and the victims and witnesses that testified, and the jurors who had to sit through and watch just some horrendous video and autopsy photos and evidence. And, you know, they saw the body, the one of Martin Richard, the most, and essentially how he was just feet from the kettle bomb or pressure cooker bomb that exploded and what it did to his little body. You know, they went through a lot too, and that's probably nightmares that they're going to have for a long time. So it's a good day for the city. It's a good day for the country. As good as it could possibly be with such a horrendous incident. And now the next phase is obviously sentencing.
You know, I know that Boston in Massachusetts is typically anti-death penalty. I know that they have they outlawed it in Massachusetts. I don't know when it was. You would know better, which is why you wanted to introduce this segment.
1952.
Was that when it was?
Yep.
And so I know they're typically anti-death penalty, and even recent polls kind of show that they're against the death penalty. In this case, since this was an attack on their hometown, I don't know that they would be anti-death penalty. And if this guy thinks he's going to be a martyr by getting the death penalty, so what?
Right.
Right? Who cares?
Right.
He's not, so that's fine. And it's a punishment prescribed by our legal system, and we're not going to keep him alive just because he wants to. I mean, if that were the case, then anybody, well, I want to die. Oh, well, then we're not going to kill you. Right? That's like second grade. So, well, okay, you want to die? Well, perfect, because that's what the punishment is. Mm-hmm. So we'll go through the legal process and do that. I think he deserves the death penalty for what he has done. But the question is how. And this is the good part of the segment here.
This is where
we got to it pretty quickly. But we know that here in the United States there are only certain like legal ways that we can execute somebody, right? But we're going to go to Sackhead Fantasyland.
Let's go, folks.
And we want to know what other ways that we may be able to employ if a court were to impose such a punishment that we could do this. And I actually found a method that was used in ancient Persia called scaphism.
Really?
And what it was, this is a person is basically stripped naked and placed in a tree trunk. And the only thing showing is their hands and feet and head. They're then force-fed milk and honey until they develop a severe case of diarrhea. And then they cover their entire body with honey in order to attract other insects, and they're kind of left in this stagnant pond. And as the human excrement accumulates, the insects get attracted, and they begin to eat and breed inside the skin of the victim.
Wow.
Where it usually takes them about 2 weeks to die. I thought that was kind of an interesting way to go, and it paints a picture. And another benefit of this is you could almost like do an enhanced interrogation over the 2 weeks it takes this person to die. Right? And it's not torture because you're carrying out a death sentence ordered by the court.
Interesting.
What do you think?
I listen, I don't think that's a bad idea.
I mean, it allows for...
It allows for a lot of options.
It does.
It really
does.
It really opens him up to have a conversation, if you will. Let's see. This is so wrong. All right, let's keep going.
What else do we got?
I have the
what about the Nordic Blood Eagle?
I want to go Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden?
Classic.
Okay, like the band, like just make him listen to it until he just wants to rip his eyeballs out?
No. The actual Iron Maiden device. Classic, old school, kind of that medieval, being real about things method of dying. And a lot of suffering involved, which is, in my opinion, okay in this. It draws it out a little bit, which I'm okay, aren't you? You know, you can also... See, Sacco's starting to chime in.
What'd Sacco say? I didn't hear him.
Oh,
Bloodwind.
Can we say that on the air? Wait, what is that? Okay.
See?
Whoa.
Yeah, it's called
Whoa.
It's called the blood. That's what I said, Blood Eagle, before you kept
Okay.
going. And Sacco knows it as Blood Wings. Yeah, it's basically where you cut the ribs of the person back by their spine, and you pull them out so that they kind of resemble wings, and then you remove their lungs through the opening and throw salt in there.
Okay, that's one possible way.
Right.
Out of the chat room, right off the bat, Jason Miller goes old school Utah style.
So straight up firing squad.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Are you? See, here's why I'm not. Right, like that's traditionally, like Goring wanted to be shot. He didn't want to be hanged because that was viewed like as a warrior's death.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy, I think he was a jihadist. He may have viewed himself as a warrior of some sort. So I don't want to give him that kind of death.
Okay.
But that's just my logic working, right? Like I don't.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Coming out of Facebook, Timothy Shea on Facebook, drop him off in Southie, which is South Boston, around closing time at the bars on a Saturday and watch justice be served. That would actually probably be
Pretty
worse
good.
than Blood Wings.
Pretty good. Or taking a page out of one of the Die Hard movies, right? Make him wear a sign.
Right. And throw him in the middle. Absolutely.
What about bamboo? Right? So you tie the victim down so he's laying flat and can't move over bamboo, like sharpened bamboo. And bamboo grows up to a foot a day.
Yeah.
And just wait for the bamboo to grow through the body.
Well, that's one way of doing it.
Like densely packed
That's a
bamboo.
good one. I'm not saying that's a bad way at all, actually. Joseph Aiello on Facebook, just insert a stick of TNT into him. That That's quick and to the point. Hey, you know what? It saves a lot of money.
Right.
I can absolutely respect that.
What about seppuku?
What is that?
Right. It used to be an honor for defeated samurai to commit seppuku, right, where they'd insert the knife in one end of their abdomen and then rip across and then up, basically disembowel themselves, while a second was waiting behind them to cut their head off.
Okay.
But if he really wants to die, give him a knife and say, okay, here you go.
Let's do it.
Let's see if you really want to do it.
That definitely could work.
It could, right?
All the people who are tuning in right now, just midway through this segment, must be like, what in the hell is going on?
Right.
They've lost it.
What about ordering suicide?
Ooh. Yeah, that's one way.
But he can't take anybody else with him.
No, it's just him.
Right, just him.
Somebody else had a really good suggestion in the chat room. I kind of had this idea. Build him into a pressure cooker bomb. Now, hear me out on this. The University of New Mexico has the explosives investigation school.
Okay.
They have this humongous range where they fire things off all the time.
Okay.
Let's fabricate a giant pressure cooker out there with him inside of it.
That's too quick.
But the fun part is you put him in on day 1, and maybe on day 5 or 6, you finally set it off. So he's in there for about 5 days wondering when it's going to be. And then I'd even give him a little bit of food and water. Just want to make sure he gets through the entire time. Just sit there and wonder when it's going to happen. Because much like his victims who didn't know it was going to happen, he shouldn't have the luxury of knowing
when it's going to happen. And no last meal.
No, gosh, no. Oh, no. No. Let's see. Ken from the chat room, this one's creative. Drop him from 35,000 feet with an MP3 of Roseanne Barr singing the national anthem through cassette tape, headphones, duct tape to his ears. Wow, that is creative.
That's very creative.
I love how creative people are getting for this segment. I'm going to check all of our Facebook pages because I think there was a couple other suggestions that came through that I want to read.
What about launching him into space, giving him a spacesuit with a certain amount of oxygen supply, and then releasing him, just fire him away from the space station so he is continuously on a trajectory out to where eventually he's just going to run out of oxygen and be by himself.
Ah. I wonder if there was a way to time it so it could be slow, like a slow trajectory.
Like a slow release.
Yeah, just not too quick. I don't want his blood to just boil and have it be
No, it wouldn't because he's in the spacesuit.
Oh.
Right, so he would run out of oxygen and be conscious the entire time knowing that he's never going to come back and he's going to suffocate.
So we'll call that the Space Cowboy.
Space Cowboy.
We'll call that the Space Cowboy. That's a good one.
Or release him and just let him burn up in the atmosphere.
Drop him right back in.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I always like the crocodile feed.
Okay.
And I'll take this out of the movie Jackass. You tie a bunch of chicken to him.
Okay.
I could be mean and say pork.
Say pork.
Okay, pork.
Yeah, say pork.
And you have him, and great minds think alike, MKL, draw and quarter him. I did mention that earlier.
Yeah.
But you bring him to a crocodile or alligator farm, and don't feed them for like a day or two. And just drop them right in the middle.
Or a week.
Week. That's fine. Week, 2 weeks, something like that. I don't want them to suffer, though. They haven't done anything wrong. So I don't want the alligators to suffer whatsoever.
Right.
But just drop them in the middle and just see what happens. Was it you who had the amazing idea? Who had the amazing idea of televising it?
No, that wasn't me. That was somebody that tweeted you or sent you a message.
That's right. Hold on. I can find that one because that was a great idea.
It was a great idea. Jason Miller has a great idea about allowing the families who suffered to have a shot at him. And you know what? I think that's actually a good idea. But how about we allow them to, all of them collectively, to break every single joint in his body?
Stretch him?
Like every single joint. Fold him up into a little box. Like whatever, right? But leave him conscious.
Yeah.
The entire time, so they could have a part in it, and then carry out whatever execution style the court ordered, and that could be part of it.
That could very well be part of it. I think that's a good one. It was Jersey Joe, and I found the statement. He says, George Carlin had a great idea. Have a pay-per-view death penalty. Money goes to paying off the national debt, and you can also have sponsors. So essentially, if Crisco sponsored it, you could drop them in boiling oil. If Remington sponsored it, firing squad, and so on and so forth. So all of those are awesome, awesome ideas. And like you said, if you really want to do something good with it, all the money cost for the investigation and the trial, et cetera, the pay-per-view money could pay that back, and then the remainder, it can go to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would really sit home with him. Let's see. There's a couple other ones that I'm a big fan of the rack. Putting them on the rack, just stretching them.
Okay.
Mary Brockman had the pressure cooker with it on high and just leave his head in it.
Okay. Have you ever heard about the brazen bull?
No, I have not.
So this is this was proposed in Sicily by a metal worker, Perillos, and basically designed a metal bull that could fit one person inside.
Uh-huh.
So it's metal, and the one person is in there,
Uh-huh.
and then a fire is set below it. And so as the person slowly cooks and burns to death, the head of the bull was designed to convert their screams to sound like the noises of a bull, and the smoke would escape out of the nose. So it was made for people to really enjoy.
I could see why that would be.
Right, but let's do it with like a pig.
Right.
Because
you can set the squeal up.
Right.
That wouldn't be all that
Set
hard.
the squeal up, no.
I think that's a good idea. There's some really awesome options. One of the ones that I actually enjoyed as well is make him run the Boston Marathon, but lay glass down for the entire portion of it. Eventually, I think that would get the job done. It's slow, painful, kind of has a little representation there. I think that's one possibility.
And make the date significant.
Absolutely.
Right, like execute him on the day of the next Boston Marathon.
Right. That's a possibility. I did get a text message that said you should Looney Tunes it, throw him out of an airplane with a backpack, and when he pulls the cord, it's just an anvil.
Right, and then on the ground where he's supposed to land, paint a big black circle.
Yep. You can fall right through it.
Right.
A lot of people, the biggest argument I heard is his entering into martyrdom, and we talked about that a little bit earlier. But, somebody said, if he was a true believer, he would have died during the firefight. He wouldn't have tried to escape. He would have fought to the end. To which my argument is, no, I believe he tried to survive so he could continue to kill people. I don't think that it was an act of not being a true believer. I just think that it was either he's a complete coward.
Yeah, if he wasn't a true believer, I don't think he would have engaged in the bombings.
Right. And I think that he wanted to continue the jihad.
What about crucifixion?
Well, we talked about this.
We did.
And public opinion could sway on that one way or the other. And here's why.
Make him, piggybacking off of your Boston Marathon idea, make him carry the cross top of the cross for the entire length of the Boston Marathon.
Oh, absolutely. That wouldn't be a bad one.
And then crucify him on it.
But I think a lot of people would be upset of the symbolism with the crucifixion.
Criminals were crucified. It wasn't just Christ.
I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying that some people could confuse that. Let's see. What's some other outstanding ways?
There's a ton.
There really is.
Look, this guy to me I have zero sympathy for him
at all.
Particularly since he set the backpack containing the pressure cooker bomb right next to an 8-year-old.
Yeah. And didn't even have the heart to even try to get rid of the 8-year-old or move it where the 8-year-old wasn't there.
Right next to a kid.
Zero sympathy.
A little kid. This guy gets absolutely has nothing coming.
We could have one sponsored by. Oh, there's one I missed. Hold on, there's a good one in the chat room I missed. I got to get back to it. We'd have a sponsored Hello Kitty and pay a San Francisco bathhouse to use their imaginations. Well, that's. But even then, they would just kill them, and that's the thing. I think you see with things like this, it really spans all. It doesn't matter. I think those on the left, like we talked about Massachusetts, last time they killed somebody was 1947, I believe it was, outlawed the death penalty in 1952. When it comes to this guy, I think that you may actually see the death penalty come back up after this.
Particularly if they don't give him the death penalty.
Yeah. And see if they could prolong the case that he's being charged with by the state in the death of Officer Sean Collier.
The guest points out it's federal and it's not. We understand that.
Yeah, what I'm saying is
the jury consists of people from the state.
Right.
So
State
if
of
the
Massachusetts
people from the
people.
state of Massachusetts that are sitting on that grand jury choose not to get the death penalty, it may be a topic of discussion to be reintroduced at the state level.
Right.
We understand it's not a state case.
Yeah, as we said earlier, we know for a fact that it
And
is
all caps,
charged
too.
I know, we got yelled at.
Angry.
Angry. We got yelled at.
Angry little guest.
But yeah, so if he was only charged on the state level, he would not qualify. And I think you could see that change, especially because he did assassinate Officer Collier. And much like states that have the death penalty, execution of a police officer or murder of a police officer is one of the qualifiers that automatically put you at the top. Caps are easy to see.
This is
I
true.
agree.
I
We did
apologize.
not miss that
We did.
whatsoever.
No, we did. We got it. We got it.
Have him play hockey. Oh, Ken's thinking something that would strike right at home. Hockey goalie tied to a net, no protection. Have the Boston Citizens pay $100 per puck shot. Now that
is
would
outstanding.
raise some money.
But let's do this. Let's do all the sports in the Boston area.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So after all of the puck shots, then he gets tied at home plate.
Drag him into Fenway.
And they
But
get
then only major league pitchers have to pay like $500,000 to be able to throw an inning
at him.
Yep.
Right, to throw at him.
I think that's a really good one.
And then basketball.
Basketball, we could have him be the basketball and have like Shaq come in.
What is this? Caddyshack? Be the ball.
Be the ball.
What is this?
No.
No, tie him up with his genitals over the rim.
All right, now we're talking.
Right, and
Okay.
let them shoot hoops at that.
Football, have to run back a punt. But it's actually the Patriots he has to run it back against.
Right.
No protection
Right,
whatsoever.
and any player they pay X numbers to actually get a hit on him. And they get to be in full gear.
Oh, absolutely.
With spikes.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, why wouldn't you have spikes?
Right, and he doesn't.
Why wouldn't you have spikes in the uniform?
Right, that's
I think
my
that goes
point.
without saying.
Obviously.
You could also, the New England Aquarium has a couple sharks in it.
Okay.
And
so you're talking after all of the sport teams,
or in lieu of.
Okay.
And what you could do is fashion oxygen to him, nick wrists, ankles, couple other things with a knife, get a little bit of blood going, and drop him in at lunchtime.
Okay.
And then you could pay admission to
like
watch
lunchtime
it.
for people or lunchtime for the sharks.
For the sharks.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you could do it at lunchtime for the people too. That's
Get
fine.
more people to come in and
right.
see.
They're on their break or whatever. So that's a possibility too. You could also just have him sit in traffic.
How about this one?
In Boston, and he'd probably want to commit suicide.
How about this one? On the 4th of July, during a fireworks show in Boston, strap him to a gigantic firework, launch him up in the air, explode him as part of a 4th of July fireworks celebration over the city of Boston. Talk about symbolism.
Yes, absolutely. Egg is adding to my New England Aquarium idea. You could have people buy a piranha for $100 and put it in the tank with him. Jason has an SHR mallet that we could use on him as well. Guest adding on to the 35,000 feet idea. Let him think about his victims all the way down.
Right.
Absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with that. So sadly, we have to. This segment went a lot quicker than I thought it would.
I know. I thought it was a great segment.
But if he does get the death penalty, which I believe he will, and a lot of sources I have in Boston are leaning that way as well. These are just some ideas. Make him date all the women on The View. That's cruel and unusual punishment.
No, because they're sympathizers to him.
Oh,
right?
yeah, I
They're
wouldn't want that to
sympathizers
happen.
him. No.
We are up against a break, though. Soccer's going to close the door, and I'm going to get yelled at if we go on. Besides, we come back. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And MKL chime in the room that she'd want 15 minutes with the mallet and him. And absolutely, I can guarantee you that would hurt him. When we come back, we're going to discuss the Iran non-deal.
Right, the Iran framework-ish.
You can't live in a house that's just a frame. We'll talk about that when we come back. All that, we wrap up the show here on the Sackheads Radio Show live from the SHR Media Studios.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. Sackheads Radio.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Catholic, stupid bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking, drinking, drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to the Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
You know, if our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border who says coordination, we got to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to The Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
And we are back here on the Sackheads Radio Show live from the SHR Media Studios. While we were at the break, I actually got another Facebook message, and apparently this segment has legs.
Really?
And, you know, I think Gutfeld listens to our messages or our phone, because he was talking about this at some point, too. And he essentially,
after we started it or after we tweeted it?
I don't know.
Or before?
I don't know when it was said. But he said it's just not justice. We have to be creative in our systems. Why can't we surround him by a room full of giant screens depicting the mutilations of his mayhem, up close, full volume, in color, for decades, nonstop, until his death?
When was that sent out?
I don't know. I just saw this. This was just given to me. I don't know when it was posted.
So that's good, but then we have to support him for decades, and he might actually enjoy seeing his handiwork
over and over again. Yeah,
over and over again.
Depends
so,
on his mindset.
You know, piggybacking off of what he said, how about screens of our soldiers killing terrorists?
Or just terrorists dying in general.
Overseas.
The Kurds, Israelis, doesn't matter who does it.
Right, just terrorists dying. Just play that over and over and over again. Along with a screen of, I don't know if there's video of it, where he ran over and killed his brother.
Oh, yeah, no, that's
right,
not
so he can watch his brother die over and over again also, in addition to...
Well, and that's the funny, not the funniest part, but during all that, you know, there was so many people out there, the conspiracy theorists, who thought this kid was being set up. And
right, Rolling Stone put him on the cover of their magazine. You remember that garbage?
As a sex symbol. Rolling Stone, by the way, who ran with that rape story, 6 months ago? And everything's found to be completely false and then does absolutely nothing. They do absolutely nothing. But that's neither here nor there. It's a worthless magazine. It doesn't. I just hope they go out of business.
It is. So the U.S. and Iran and the group reached a framework. Supposedly, not a deal.
Framework.
People keep calling it a deal. Well, it's not. It's framework, and I do like how Congress is trying to get legislation going, basically saying no, we will have say on this. The Constitution gives them say.
Yeah.
They don't need to write a law, but I guess in the Senate the other day there were like 3 votes short of having a veto-proof majority.
They're going to get there.
I hope
they're going to get there.
But here's the thing. Here's what's concerning. There are some differences between what the U.S. is putting out and what Iran is putting out.
And not even little subtle differences. That's the best part.
Right.
It's like night and day.
Right. Like the heavy water reactor is one part. In the U.S. Fact sheet, the U.S. says that the heavy water reactor at Iraq is going to be redesigned, rebuilt, will not be able to produce weapons-grade plutonium, and that it will be destroyed or removed. And in Iran's statement, they're saying, nope, the Iraq reactor is going to remain. We're just going to update it so it produces less plutonium. But what's less plutonium, right? Like if it's producing 10 now, what, like 9.99?
Yeah, as long as it's a little bit less.
Yeah, it's less. It's less. What are some of the other differences there? Uranium stockpiles. The U.S. statement says that they're not enriching uranium over 3.67% for at least 15 years, and they have to reduce the stockpile of about 10,000 kilograms of low-enriched uranium. And Iran's saying, no, there's no distinction really between the 10 and 15 years. And then it talks about that they're going to be enriching still at Natanz during that time. So that's interesting. Centrifuges, right? Centrifuges.
What centrifuges? Move on, next.
Yeah, Iran centrifuges are going to be limited. They can do limited research, but they won't be able to use advanced centrifuges for 10 years. And Iran's like, we're still going to continue in research and development on advanced machines, and we'll continue the initiation and completion phases of the research and development processes of IR 4, 5, 6, and 8 centrifuges during the 10-year period of the Comprehensive Plan for Joint Action.
And we're still
okay.
We're still going to sit at the table.
Right. U.S. says, oh, hey, nuclear-related sanctions, we're only going to suspend it after there's verification that Iran's taken the nuclear steps that we've outlined. And Iran says, all the sanctions is immediately going to be removed after we reach a comprehensive agreement.
This is like it's like having a conversation with a 5-year-old.
Right.
Where you're like, okay, so you're going to clean up your room, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick up my car.
No, your whole room. Okay, my car. No, the room. The car. The room. The car. No, you're not listening. No, I am. You said the car.
Yeah, you said clean up those 2 cars.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. We're negotiating with people who don't deserve negotiation to begin with. The president walked out to the Rose Garden earlier this week or last week and hails the agreement to framework as a victory.
Hang on, one thing on the president and his commenting on this, and I want to go back to the old story for just a brief moment. Why hasn't the president come out and commented on the conviction of the Boston Marathon bomber?
At all.
He came right out after the Scott Brown verdict and all these other cases.
Yeah, he loves to come out.
Loves to come out of the closet.
He came out before there was a verdict and what happened with the Cambridge police and said they acted foolishly.
Stupidly.
Yep.
But no statement on this, so I digress. I apologize. Go ahead.
Yep, so that's... I wonder how soon before he releases a statement on the South Carolina shooting. I bet you he speaks to that before he speaks to the marathon conviction. Mark my words, but I'll digress and move on. So he comes out and he hails this framework as some sort of success. To which I immediately say, well, you can't live in a house that's a frame. And I mean that. That's not building a house. That's building the frame of a house. And Israel came out and said, hey, we want one of the provisions to be that they recognize Israel's right to exist. That's a fair thing to throw in.
Yes.
Considering, they're kind of our ally and, they're a friend of our nation. We're a friend of theirs. Iran wants to annihilate them from the planet.
That's those silly Iranians.
Right. So, no, can't have that. I'm not going to hold them to that. Why? First of all, we know that he's not. They're not. Iran's not going to live up to any of this. I mean, that's just a foolish thought to begin with. They're not going to do any of this crap. We're wasting our time.
Right.
However, you at least can force them to say it. They're not going to believe it, but just let's humor them. Act like you like Israel. Just throw it out there. Be like, hey, you know what? Good idea. Let's throw that in there, too. Hey, Iran, mullahs, you guys like Israel now. Okay. And we all know they're lying.
Not that even they like Israel, but just that Israel
recognize
has
their
a
existence
right to
live.
exist.
Yes.
Right. Hey, Israel has a right to live, just like
throw
you
it
do.
in there. Just see what happens.
What do you think would happen if the United States government came out and said, much like Iran has said about Israel, right? We want to wipe them off the map. What if somebody in the U.S. administration said, you know what? Iran, they're such jerks, we just want to wipe them off the map. And by the way, we have the means to do it.
The world would go insane.
They would.
There's a great There's a great video out there.
But nobody's going insane over Iran saying this.
No, because they've gotten a pass. I equate Iran to like 20-year-old kids now, where they can do all of these horrible things and get a pass because it's just that generation. Oh, it's just that version of Islam. Oh, it's just the mullahs. Oh, it's just the Ayatollah. Okay. We're not going to... And if it's just them, if that's the reaction that we're going to take, then why are we even considering a nuclear conversation with them?
Right, and why wouldn't the rest of the world be like, oh, it's just the Americans. You know them and their guns. Right?
Well, behind every blade of grass in that country is a guy with a gun, so you know how kooky they are. And that's fine. I want people to think we're that crazy and kooky.
Absolutely.
I actually do.
I do, too.
I want them to be a little afraid at all times.
I do, too.
There's a great video out there right now, speaking of the view of Israel, where this guy, and I wish I knew his name off the top of my head, goes to UC Berkeley in California, and for the first 5 minutes of the video, he's waving an ISIS flag in different parts of the campus, talking about how great ISIS is and how they need to be supported. And he's getting people supporting him for doing it.
Yep.
Right on, brother. All this other stuff.
Yep.
And
he
it goes
has
on for
the right
about,
to do this.
Yep. It goes on for about 5 minutes. I support you. I support you. I support you, people are saying as you walk by. And I'm being told this is an old one. I just saw this, so I don't know how old it is. But then he pulls out an Israeli flag and starts waving it around. Israel has the right to exist, et cetera, et cetera. And immediately, people are outraged. They're murderers. How dare you? That's not for here. We don't support that. Get off the campus. Attacking him verbally for waving the Israeli flag. If that, and just like Ag said in the chat room, old but very telling, if that doesn't tell you what's wrong with this country. That you could support ISIS.
Or with Berkeley.
Well, there's a lot wrong with Berkeley, but this is one of the big ones. That you could support ISIS on that campus, and everyone's okay with it. And it's almost like the video that was released a couple weeks ago with the kid that went to the college and asked if he could have an ISIS group, essentially, on campus, and the college was all for it. The view we have of these extremists, ISIS, Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, etc., and then the view of Israel, who doesn't bother anybody. That's the most amazing thing. When Israel was announced as a state, they were attacked immediately and have been continuously attacked through their entire existence. They fight back. In the case of the 6-Day War, it was, I believe they took a little bit of land and kept it just to prove a point that they were kind of sick and tired of getting attacked and they're not going to stand for it anymore. But reality is what it is. Israel, in general, doesn't bother anyone who doesn't bother it. You know, I equate them to kind of like that dog, and I don't mean that they're dogs, but that mentality of, that dog's fine, just don't bother him, he won't bother you. That's how Israel is. If you don't bother them, they're lovely people. But if you attack them, they're going to fight back, and they're going to do it in a way that says, we won't put up with this. You look at the last go-around with Palestine. How many rockets were intercepted by the Iron Dome before Israel took action? You want to talk about turning the other cheek. I want to say, and we sat here during the show, I had the rocket, the Red Alert app.
I remember that.
And it was going off
every time there was a rocket attack into Israel.
Every 2 to 3 minutes for 3 weeks straight on a show. It was going off. And then the invasion started, and everyone was outraged. How dare they invade? They have a lot of nerve. But this is the view of a lot of people about Israel. And then you have Iran, whose whole goal in life, in my opinion, is to wipe Israel off the face of the planet, even if that means taking themselves out in the process. And our ridiculous administration sits at a table with them in Switzerland, and I blame England, and really quick, France walked away at one point during this.
Yes.
Because they were
France
so
away,
angry at the Americans for making these concessions during the negotiations.
Look, if France walks away, they'll walk away from a fight. Well, they usually run, right?
Right.
They usually run. They walked
Ever
away.
since the Revolutionary War.
Right.
I don't know what happened.
They walked away from that. I mean, that spoke volumes to me.
That's enormous. Yeah. And you know, the French have had a really, really strengthening anti-Islamist approach. And I think it is starting to go into these negotiations where they said, hey, no, these extremists, look at what they did in our nation, look at what they've been doing in other nations. We can't allow this extremism to continue, especially when it's a state that has a nuclear power. This can't happen. They need to concede certain things. And we're like, no, it's fine.
I think Israel's going to hit them.
Oh, Israel's definitely going to hit them.
I think Israel's going to hit them.
I almost think, and you know, my little conspiracy theorist ways, I almost think that's exactly what Obama wants. And I'll tell you why. We negotiated with them. Oh, we tried to fix it. Everything was we tried to did fine. Everything's okay. And then Israel's like, yeah, they're going to bomb us. No way. We're going to level. There goes Israel again. This is why they can't be trusted. We had it all figured out, and they just go in with their bombs and clean them off the face of the planet. You have people who are making excuses that live over here about why Israel shouldn't be nervous.
Right.
Go move to Israel and tell Israelis they shouldn't be nervous.
Right.
Because you know what? When you're that close to Iran, you don't need a 10,000-mile ICBM like they do to hit us.
No.
2,000 max? If that. I don't even think it's that far. They have that technology. They have that technology already. And they don't need a big warhead to take out Israel. It's very, very small.
Israel's small country, yeah. You
a tiny country.
You cook one off, and you're going to affect that entire region. Look, there's no way Israel can let that happen. I think they would use military force, absolutely. And look, they have a heck of an air force.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know if they could take Iran in a ground war, not without U.S. support. And who else is going to support Israel? Obama wouldn't send troops. Congress might authorize troops, but Obama's the commander-in-chief. If he doesn't order them out...
You watch how many nations in that area would all of a sudden jump on board. And I believe that. I really do. Because they look at... They may not like Israel, but they're going to look at the two evils in front of them, in their opinion, in their eyes, and say, which one's a greater threat to us? A nuclear Iran or Israel? Israel hasn't been bothering anyone in 40 years.
Israel doesn't bother anybody.
Right.
And Iran's kind of the big bully.
Right. And they will be a bigger bully once they get the bomb. You look at their actions in Yemen. You look at their actions in Lebanon, Palestine. They are the largest state supporter of terrorism in the world.
Yeah.
Actively supporting. It's not a secret. We all know it's not a secret.
And when they support it, if they get nuclear weapons, do you honestly believe that these weapons won't find their way into the hands of terrorist organizations?
Willingly. We talked about this last week, I think it was. You put once, and we talked about it coming here, the suitcase bomb.
Yes.
If you get a dirty bomb in Israel, that's going to affect that entire country.
Yes.
And the one thing, you said, I don't know about Israel in a ground war with Iran. I'm still putting my money on Israel. I will always put my money on Israel. And I'll tell you why. Because that ground war is going to be a tank battle.
But the ground war with Iran would cause some issues for Israel. I'm not saying they couldn't win it, but I would.
Oh, it wouldn't be an easy fight. It wouldn't be like rolling over.
Not at all.
Another small country. But you look at, if they get into a tank war, my money's on Israel. Because Israel, their tank technology, and they're amazing. They're one of the best trained tank fighting groups in the world. They've proven it time and again. I mean, look at the 6-Day War, the damage they did with just tanks.
And in 6 days.
I mean, as quickly as that opened, they closed it.
Right.
And Israel doesn't mess around. The other thing, too, that people overlook with Israel, it's one of the only nations in that entire region. It is certainly the only non-Arab nation where, A, it's the only non-Arab nation, B, it's the only non-Arab nation, if you will, that you can be of any faith and participate in all aspects of life.
Mm-hmm.
You can join their military. You can vote. You can run for office. You can be a normal person if you're Muslim, Arab. They don't.
Kind of like America.
It's kind of like America. And they don't care, but yet they're still made out to be these animals. And we're still sitting at a table with the true animals talking about giving them nuclear power.
No. We're talking about preventing it. Right? Like they can have nuclear power. They need to turn lights on.
Yeah.
If this administration
they're going to turn a really
that,
bright light on for about 20 seconds.
If this administration really believes that, why not open up some nuclear power plants here in the U.S.?
Yeah, let's keep going.
Hey, you want us off coal? Okay.
It's all bunk. It's all bunk at the end of the day. It is all bunk. It's a given. I'm telling you, I don't care what anyone says. 8 years maximum, you're going to see Obama the head of the United Nations. I swear to God that's going to happen. The man is a world without borders. He thinks everyone should be equal. He is pushing Israel down by lifting Iran up. And we're just allowing it to happen.
And our country in the process.
Absolutely,
because
our country in the process.
After Israel's dealt with, you think Iran doesn't want to deal with the Great Satan?
Oh, we're next.
Which is us?
We're next.
Of course they do. After that, it's just a matter of rocket technology.
Yeah.
To get something that would reach us.
And you think the Russians wouldn't help with that? I mean, look at the Russians are. There was a Russian commentator, a Russian military man the other day. I don't know what his rank was.
Military
general. He was pretty high up. Who essentially said, if we start arming the Ukrainians, they were going to start arming the Mexicans to take back California.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah,
we talked about that.
So
they already have California. Seriously,
they do.
They already have. Look, De Leon introduced. He's a senator out of, I think it's Commerce. in Southern California introduced legislation to give criminal aliens where we have to pay for their health care and everything else.
Everything.
Right. Another friend of the show brought that up. And
it's frightening.
Yeah.
It's absolutely frightening.
So, really? They have it. Did you know that there are times, and I forget the event, at the California State Capitol, where they light the Capitol up in green, white, and red to symbolize the Mexican flag? They fly the Mexican flag off of the California State Capitol on the west side of the Capitol.
Unbelievable.
I mean, this is...
Hey, you know what's funny?
Arm them up, boys. There's not going to be a fight. Like, they're here.
They're already here.
Yeah.
Speaking of crazy California, you know how we're in this drought, and I know we only have a couple minutes left, but we're in this drought that everyone's worried about. And so much of what comes out of Jerry Brown's mouth about this drought is insane anyhow, but he's trying to blame the drought on everything except for what really happened.
The weather.
He's trying to blame it on the weather.
It is the weather.
Global warming, all this stuff.
Right.
He fails to leave out how many gallons of water we destroy.
Right.
For 3-inch fish.
Right.
Salmon babies.
Yes.
And we're talking hundreds of billions of gallons.
Yes.
Through the course of the year. $100 billion for a bullet train in nowhere, but they haven't built the the reservoir that was approved 15 years ago.
Right.
For like $350 million.
Right.
All of these things, and now they're going to start monitoring the length of your shower. And when you worry about executive action, and this is on a state level, but one of the things he did is he passed this executive order and then turned around and he said, because if it's an emergency order and the way that it's worded, this is now essentially law. It comes with the force of law. They're going to monitor showers. They're going to monitor everything with water. From here, water, folks.
Yeah.
The California EPA police are going to be busier than they ever have been.
And we can't. And we have a bunch of agricultural in the center of the agricultural industry in California has been destroyed because of a stupid fish.
Smelt.
Because of a stupid frickin' fish.
And they can't even prove that if they stop the water that the fish would die.
Right. And so what if it does?
Right. But there's not even any proof behind their argument.
Right.
So,
but so what if there
no,
was?
I agree. Endgame, who cares?
Right? Let's get our agriculture up and running, get our economy back, and maybe stop destroying water. And we wouldn't be in this problem.
I think it's like 300 billions of gallons of water that we pump into the San Francisco Bay for no reason.
Right.
Other than fish. We pumped out of, there's a reservoir nearby called Folsom Lake. That's a reservoir.
Yep.
That we pumped it out of to change the water, 100 million gallons or something like that, to change the water temperature for the baby salmon and to help them get to the ocean faster, something they do naturally anyways.
Yes.
I'll tell you, I say this before and I'll say it again, California is the petri dish for leftist progressive thinking. And when it happens here, it usually happens in other places. So we talk about it not just because we live here, but because how much it's gone on to affect other parts of the country and then on a federal level. And I'll tell you what, folks, it is scary right now where we live. Oh, hey, buddy, guess what?
What?
Oh, really quick. Go to ironbrewcoffee.com. ironbrewcoffee.com. Email them. Ask them to be a sponsor of the SHR Media Group all the way around, especially the Exceptional Conservative Show.
Oh, I did find that number. It's between 2009 and 2010, 300 billion gallons.
There it is. 300 billion for fish.
100 million acre feet of water were diverted away from farmers in the Central Valley of California and just dumped into the San Francisco Bay.
Yep. Unbelievable. Thank goodness.
Man-made drought.
Yep, and we're in the middle of
40% unemployment in certain communities.
Because of it.
Because of it, and cost us hundreds of thousands of acres of fertile farmland.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Make sure you check out all the other great shows here on the SHR Media Network. I will be back tomorrow morning, 12 in the East, 9 a.m. on 1360 a.m. WNJC for The Edge of Liberty. Make sure you check out The Unpleasant Blind Guy. You can find him on The Pundit Press. Check out The Exceptional One himself, Ken McClinton, Jason Miller, all the other great shows here on SHR Media Studios. I'm
Good show,
Sackhead
my
Sean.
friend. I'm Sackhead Clint.
We'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackhead Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
Into the silo.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.